So there's a little something I've been doing for a while, on and off. You might have seen something a little bit similar before, but I wanted to explain my little variation, and it goes a little something like this. Well, hello everybody, welcome to another video. Yeah, today I want to talk about blowing up zergs in World vs. World, specifically Edge of the Mists. This is something I've been doing a while. You can probably see like a year ago, I did have some background footage on the video of me blowing up some people on a bridge using some odd strategies, but things have changed quite a lot recently, and the way you actually pull this off is some fairly interesting gameplay to me. I will say, first of all, obviously this is Edge of the Mists. Obviously, I'm fighting a lot of up levels. Obviously, up levels die faster, and you do get a little bit of slack for doing this kind of thing because some people only care about K training. However, my opinion on the matter is that Edge of the Mist is cool, it's a decent map, and I don't think it should just be K training. I think it's really stupid that people can't engage in normal combat there and just generally have fun. This is fun, and it's fairly easy to counter too, which I'll talk about very soon, so screw it. It really doesn't bother me too much. Even though, again, this is Edge of the Mist, this does kind of work in real world versus world. The actual damage that you output is so significant that, yes, you'll kill a lot of 80s. In fact, the footage that I gathered for this video, which was all last night, I did end up with quite a few heavy bags of goods. You only get heavy bags of goods if you actually kill level 80s, as far as I understand, and certainly I have seen it work in real world versus world too. The difference is, when people are in TeamSpeak and in real world versus world, when people spread out just a little bit more, they tend to recover a lot faster. You actually see banners go down and things, and then those stragglers that you'll see a lot of times in the footage in this video that survive can actually do a lot more damage and recover much faster and kind of knock you out. That said, it's still pretty good that with just 5 or 4 people you can push such devastating impact out onto enemy zergs. So yeah, let's talk about the comp. I wanted to show you guys the builds and kind of the way it works, because as I say, there is something very, very cool, specifically with the last character I'm going to talk about soon. This really, you're going to see in the footage here, I've got 5 people, but really the bulk of this is 4 guys. 4 guys can take out 50. Especially in Edge of the Mist, quite easily, and it's through some very specific stuff. There are lots of flavors of it. This is my particular favorite one, and we'll even talk about what you can fill that 5th slot up with. In this video, I happen to be a warrior, but I'll talk about the virtues of warrior and maybe a different class as well. So most of the damage here is coming, as you can probably guess, from the Elementalist. That's one of the roles that I'm playing. I'll show you guys what these Ellies run. They are actually identical builds, and they're going to look fairly similar to other builds you've seen already. So here we are on Liss. Liss, for what it's worth, is running the wrong runes here, really the ideal runes. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to full Zerk or full Assassin yourself out. I have pure Berserker Ascended stuff, except my staff, which I changed to Assassins, and 2 trinkets, which are Assassin's trinkets. And so this combined with Fury and a Banner of Discipline, I basically get to 100% crit chance. And that's what you want to aim for yourself, but mostly you're just going to want to Berserk yourself out as much as possible, very similar to how you would say treat dungeons. The runes, retaliation is a huge thing. I'm going to talk about more a little bit soon, but you'll see in the footage, like the original clip here, this is a lot of damage we're putting out, but we also take a ton of retail, and I get very, very, very low. This will happen every single time, almost. And so because of this, really, if you're running Scholar runes, as you can see here, the tier 6, 10% more damage where you have to above 90%, really not that good. Much better would be Strength runes, especially considering you want a Might stack at the start. And if your Might's lasting longer, you kind of get more time to pick your perfect moment to blow the crap out of someone. Like, you get more time. However, I'm not going to buy a Strength and get rid of Scholar when I use it for other game types. Looking at the traits, everything's really simple. Okay, so this is normal staff LE traits. We're looking at longer fire fields, quicker cooldowns, more damage in fire. We're looking at bolts and heart loss of damage against low people, arcane lightning, which gives us more ferocity after using an arcane ability, which we're going to toggle between arcane brilliance and arcane wave to maintain an uptime, and blasting staff, which is very important. Now you might be tempted to be like, oh, I just want more damage, I'll go 10% more damage. No, but blasting staff you really, really, really need. The ultimate thing that kills this and stops you 99% of the time from completely wiping a group and flipping the objective for yourself, which you'll see we actually did manage to do. The only thing stopping you from doing that is when people spread out. So blasting stuff is really important, and you don't need more damage, trust me. Then for food, what everyone will be running are Dragon's Breath buns, which is 200 power for 30 seconds after killing an enemy and more crit damage. This is the absolute best food you can get. People will instantly start dying, and that power, that additional power, will help you take out the tankier folks that are out there. And then I just run more power on the utility, on the maintenance with Superior or Potent, I believe it is, Sharpening Stones. That's the deal. Don't run something like Seaweed Salad, because as an Ellie, you're going to be standing still and you're going to be rooted. The one cool thing, though, the one difference here is, or the one thing we're going to play into, is with our sigils. In Edge of the Mist specifically, it is never night time. Edge of the Mist is always day, so while in a dungeon you might have Force and Night, here instead we've got Force and a free slot, and what we're actually going to run with this free slot is a Sigil of Impact. This is going to sound really weird and stupid to you guys. Plus 10% damage while someone is stunned or knocked down. But that sounds cool in theory, but how can we ensure that they're going to be stunned or knocked down for any reasonable duration of time? This also stacks with our Grandmaster in Air Magic, Tempest Defense, 20% further damage while someone is stunned or knocked down. So how can we ensure that from happening? Don't forget, we've got 2 Elementalists running this identical setup. Well, the way we achieve that is through player 3 in our team, who kind of supports the DPS, and that's the Thief. Alright, so this is where things start to get really interesting, and you might find the flavour of this is slightly different to other people who might blow up Wild vs. Wild Zergs, and that's the way that the Thief interacts with the 2 Elementalists. Now, the Thief is going to have the same sigil setup, same food, and is going to go crazy damage as much as possible, but it will be very revealing in the utilities what things are different about here. Here we have Basilisk Venom, we have Devourer Venom, and we have Scale Venom. Scale Venom's kind of optional. The Thief is really important, first of all, for providing Shadow Refuge. Shadow Refuge will stealth the whole group. The idea here is you're hunting a Zerg down, you wait for them to get to the perfect place, and then so that they don't see you coming, you charge them from stealth. So this will be a reasonable amount of stealth. Not infinite stealth for you all, but this will give you some reasonable stealth. And the Thief as well is going to be running Pistol offhand so that everyone can blast in this to give themselves even more stealth should they need it. But the idea is the Thief, first of all, is integral to the group because they're providing that stealth. This also means you can really only have a 5-man team unless you get more stealth somewhere, because this will only push out stealth to 5 allies. If you go to 6 players, then someone's not going to be stealth and it just kind of messes stuff up. But this will stealth all 4 of you in like the core setup. And then the Venoms change things quite a lot. Where are we getting our stuns from? We're getting them from Basilisk Venom. Basilisk Venom is actually traded here to last for 2 hits, and it will push that Bassy Venom out to everyone around you. So that's actually going to be 10 stuns that across the group people are dropping the second they engage. The first strike the Elementalist drops down of some of their massive AoEs will immediately stun all their foes. For the next 2 hits it will stun all of their foes, and they will therefore proc all of their massive damage too. And so this does a few things. This not only buffs people's damage so much more, but it also means that enemies are CC'd and they actually can't move out quickly. A couple of hits and they're dead when they're taking this amount of damage, and this ensures that they stay in place. Further along with this idea is this other very important Venom. This is Devourer Venom. A lot of people have ways of getting around stun breaks, right? Like, so Rangers might trade so that the pet takes the first stun. Warriors have stuff like automatic balance stance. Well, Devourer Venom gets around that too. Devourer Venom then immobilizes them. There's very little sudden, randomly proccing active Condi cleanse out there, so even if they do manage to stun break, most people suddenly subjected to this torment will still be not able to move because they have to find or identify that they've also been immobilized. And 2.5 seconds is pretty much enough time that you'll need. Lastly, this last slot is pretty much whatever you want. Here I'm just demonstrating that you can take Scale Venom. Importantly, this buries the immobilized beneath some other conditions that have to be cleansed first. This will put a bit of torment out there, especially if the Thief decides they want a bit of condition damage, which I wouldn't really recommend. I'd recommend this character goes for the 100% crit chance, goes for the Zerg stuff as well. But then this can help knock out a couple of people like Warriors who run Defy Pain, the trait, which will give them a free Endure Pain when they get lower health. Signet of Stone Rangers, this can help pick those guys off. But your other options, of course, are like the Precision Signet, or maybe a bit more quality of life for yourself. Lastly, you do have the heal. Now, you can run a normal heal so that if there's a couple of stragglers left alive at the end, you can actually put up something of a fight. But another really nice option I don't have unlocked for the character, but is Skelk Venom. I suppose I could unlock this, but what Scalp Venom would do is, again, help you push out that little bit of might on your Venoms, but then everyone actually lifesteals too, which again is even more kind of stacking damage. But again, you're going to find the damage is more than enough already. So traits for the Thief, because you want lots of Venoms going out and you want to share them, really that confines you to Deadly Art 6, Shadow Art 6, then up here, Critical Strikes, you can just take more crit chance or whatever you want really. Traits are a little bit freer here. Lastly, before I forget as well, the Thief should have Short Bow on their offset, and then they can blast in the Elementalist fields before engaging, to help everybody get to that nice flat 25 might. So you're going to be going in with all the Venoms popped across everyone, 25 might and stealth. The Thief is responsible for all of that. Oh, and Fury, of course, because of the Elementals. Thief is responsible for all of that. They are enabling you to land the damage. Not by just buffing your damage like mad, but also providing you with the stealths and the CCs to get in undetected and start hitting people and stop them from running away from you very, very quickly. So, slot number 4 has nothing to do with the damage, really. A little bit it does, but not entirely. The last slot is going to be a Guardian. This is where things get really fun. Because the Guardian is incredibly effective at what it does, and really it's preying on the stupidity or nature of real people, humans out there in Edge of the Mist. So this video isn't just to kind of show people what I've been doing, maybe they can try it for themselves, but also, with what I'm about to say, you're actually going to learn how to counter this very, very easily. The Guardian does something very cool in that it makes sure the entire Zerg wants to be in your AoEs. The truth is that even with Blasting Staff, with the Venoms, with all of that stuff, really, it's very easy to get out of these big nukes. Yes, if you're caught in the initial couple of hits, you're probably going to die straight away, but if you see even just an inkling of that stuff, you're going to try and move. Now, fortunately, for the way that Ice Bow works, for the way that Meteor Shower works, these aren't really confined to the 5-target cap. Like, the first meteor will hit someone and maybe down them instantly, do something like 15,000 damage, immediately down them. Second one will probably kill them. After that's happened, the next meteor that lands is free to hit a completely different target. Each meteor and each volley from the Ice Bow is actually striking 5 targets themselves. So it's actually like you hit 5 separate targets with every single projectile. After just a couple, people are dying, and then other people are getting hit by those projectiles. So that's why you can see, even though most skills in Guild Wars 2 have a target cap of just 5 people, you're seeing groups of like 20 to 30 or even more people still dying. That's because you've loaded so much damage up in the nature of Ice Bow and Meteor Shower. But back to the Guardian then. How does the Guardian bypass that 5-man limit? How does the Guardian keep everyone in? There's no taunt in the game yet, though, you know, a Revenant doing this at some point might be quite interesting. They could try and drop, for example, a ring of warding around the group, but people are just going to stability and run through, and again, we got the target cap. So what's the situation? Control points. So you got to realize, whether you're in World vs. World or Edge of the Mists, at some point, the entire Zerg that you're fighting, that you want to kill, they're all going to close in together to stand on a very small circle and flip it. Why do they do this? Well, because they want to guarantee credit for themselves. If they weren't on one of the flame rams, if they didn't DPS a gate at all, if they didn't kill any NPCs inside, they probably won't get credit unless they stand in that ring. That's when we're talking about keeps, that's when we're talking about towers. But if we're talking about other things like sentries, where they haven't even got a tag on the guard itself, people definitely want to stand in there, and they want to get that for themselves, especially in Edge of the Mist, where a lot of people are there for easy, cheesy leveling up. And that's where the guard comes in. If this Guardian can get on that point, particularly right as it's about to tick, as it's about to cap, and if the Guardian can survive, players aren't really focusing on the fact that they're dying or they're about to get blown up. All they care about is standing on there for that last little tick. They might not even realize in this huge Zerg that there's an enemy player standing there contesting it. It only takes a couple of seconds. And by doing this, everyone moves in very tightly, and even when the damage starts to roll, they assume that eventually that one Guardian in the middle, whatever it is that's contesting it, if they've even managed to identify something contesting it, is going to die, and it will flip, and they want to be stood there when it flips. So you get this really bizarre, interesting scenario where players huddle themselves up like sheep, and they stay in your AoEs just because that point is still under contention. And the later that the Guardian can get on the point where it's just like one sliver away from capping, the more likely it is that enemy players will want to stand on that too, because they want to be there at that last second and they perceive it to be really close to the end. So what does the Guardian have to do? The Guardian has to get on the point and the Guardian has to survive. The Guardian has to tank them. Another really nice benefit of this is most players are focusing on killing the Guardian, stopping them from getting their loot, than they are the incredibly squishy, dangerous Elementalists and Thief off or to the side somewhere that just de-stealthed, who are actually killing them. So the Guardian is a tank in a very, very true sense. I'm showing this off in World vs. World because I don't have my Guardian set up for PvE or World vs. World at all. But the Guardian you saw me running with in the video was a Nomad's tank in full Nomad's gear. It wasn't really getting tags for themselves in any way. It was more for the fun for this character's perspective. And what they're going to do, most importantly, is yes, the Ring of Warding will help. You can run your hammer. You can even run a staff as well. That's kind of an optional thing for the build. Staff will give you Empower, but you should be at 25 might anyway, and Empower doesn't give you very long duration might, so it's really not that useful. But staff does have a line of warding which they can drop as well to keep knocking people over. Even players that hit stuff like balance stance or give themselves 5 or 10 stability, they're going to have that ripped through them by the Basilisk Venom and then probably get caught in a Ring of Warding anyway if, you know, they're one of the last ones left alive. And the rest of the stuff is all about survival. So here, as you can see, I've got Stand Your Ground. You obviously don't want to get CC'd off of the point yourself. Sanctuary is incredibly powerful. Now, yes, this can knock people a little bit away and spread them out a little bit, but it's still more than enough to stay within an Ice Bow 4 or a Meteor Shower's range. And very importantly, you've got Judge's Intervention. This is a 1200 range blink. Perspective of the Guardian is probably more important than anyone else's. The Ellies and the Thieves, they're focusing on buffing their damage and stealthing themselves. The Guardian has to stand just close enough so that when the boss defending an objective, or the guard defending an objective or whatever, when it dies, they're watching, they're in range of the event, and they're seeing that the capture point is ticking up, and they need to be there at the perfect time, unseen, 1200 range away, to Judge's Intervention in very fast. Now, if you're not going to run Staff, which of course isn't super useful, you can actually run Sword main hand and give yourself another blink in the way of the Flashing Blade, and that's why Guardian, and then of course run Focus for more blocks. That's why Guardian is really very strong. It's a heavy armor, it's got a lot of defensive stuff about it, but also it can quickly snap into a location in a way that, for example, Warriors can't. You do of course also have Renewed Focus. This can help you survive also, but while you're doing this, they will capture the point, so if you're committing to using this, then you want to get into the point a little bit earlier than when it's at the last second. But that's the idea of the Guardian. He moves in at the last second, he brings an Ice Bow of his own, the 4th Ice Bow, 2 on the Elementalist, 1 on the Thief, 1 on him, drops his Ice Bow 4, contributes to some damage if he likes. If you're in full Nomads, obviously that's going to be questionable how much damage that does, but you will still be proccing Venoms on people, and then focuses 100% on survival and not getting knocked out of the ring. Then the entire Zerg themselves want to stand in, and they all die. This is something that I've really been enjoying about blowing up Zergs. It does present not a full hard trinity like you see in other MMOs, but there are very distinct roles for each player. Each player is integral to making the whole thing work. The Guardian has a very specific and very different role and playstyle to the Thief, and the Elementalists too have a pretty different experience from the others. Roaming, of course, is an incredibly big part of this. You're not spending the entire time destroying Zergs, you're most of the time spending time trying to predict where they'll move and position yourself in the right place, which itself can be quite fun, but then you look at the fact that there's a lot of mobility necessary, and everyone kind of helps each other out. You've got the double Ellies and stuff for pretty much permanent swiftness. You've got the Ellies dropping fiery greatswords to allow all 4 of you to move around very quickly. You've got the Thief providing that defensive support by quickly stealthing the whole group if you find yourself caught out. It's a very cool way of playing the game, and a very different experience to running around in giant World vs. World Zergs, or just DPSing stuff in dungeons, for example. So let's talk a little bit about the 5th slot. Now, I'm not going to go in-game to show you guys these builds. I don't really have them set up. But you can fill up with a 5th person in the party. As I said, here we had a Warrior. Warrior's pretty nice for 2 reasons. Again, a very kind of traditional MMO-y term you hear is the idea of an off-tank. And that's a character that will go in and support maybe tanking when the main tank goes down or needs their cooldowns to be sorted out, or if you've got a very complicated scenario where there's 2 like balls that need to be kept together. You can actually kind of have something of an off tank in this situation too. If the Guardian is struggling, Warriors, even if they spec themselves for max damage, they can still take stuff like Endure Pain, like Berserker stance, like Defiant stance on their utilities, and actually prevent that capture point from flipping for a long time themselves too. So you can have this Warrior. The Warrior can contribute a little bit in damage too. In this situation, the Warrior would take the Ice Bow and the Guardian would just go in hands free, but the Warrior can actually provide banners, you know, Banner of Discipline, to help people get to that 100% crit chance threshold, and then boost their ferocity even further, maybe even a Banner of Strength if they really feel it's worth it. They can contribute with blasts. For that reason, they're pretty good to run with. Also, because the main problem here is you're going to kill like 20 people straight up. It's the stragglers at the end. It will turn into something of a normal fight, and you're just got to hope that your 5 players can beat their, 10 remaining disoriented players. And in this situation, again, the warrior can be really strong. Instead of specking complete YOLO for the ice bow, they can actually use a lot of stuff to chase people down and be a bruiser, res people up, and have a lot of presence there, picking off the survivors. If you are not running a warrior, the other one I would really recommend is a Mesmer. Mesmers are really strong for a couple of reasons. Number one, they can portal, so this can help you. It's like another way of getting out of dodge very quickly if you don't want to blast stealth. You can even blast stealth and then port, and enemy zergs just don't know where you are. If they've cottoned onto you, for example, at the start of this video, that group that we killed, we started waiting for them in a keep a little bit later, and they immediately just came up. They were really careful. They saw us, and they just destroyed us with a Mesmer. We could have ported out. Mesmer can, in theory, provide mass invis as well for the group for some longer stealth to help you set up your kills even better. Close gaps from even longer entirely unseen, or if not running massive invis, the Mesmer can actually run time warp too, so you get the burst down even quicker, though from the footage you might be questioning how useful that truly is. Last thing though that's very important that Mesmer can provide is null filled. Now, Necromancer can kind of do this too if you wanted to take a Necromancer through well off suffering, but null filled's important because it strips a lot of boons from enemies, and the main thing that will kill your backline is retaliation. And Nullfield will strip that retaliation away. So let's talk a bit about retail. This was something I found really interesting. This is more of an issue in Edge of the Mist. Retaliation isn't really something you will see any traits or equipment or builds people actually run suddenly passively proccing. Like, some of the Zerg might have retail, 5 of them might have retail, because they accidentally just blasted a light field. In a very, very, very rare situation, you might have a warrior who procs retail on one of their Grandmaster traits, I believe, but otherwise you shouldn't come up against it. But retail will destroy you. You can see time and again in the footage here, when I go to burst a Zerg, my health gets incredibly low. Why is there so much retail around? Well, it's because of the world versus world traits. People who spec defense against guards will get free 10 seconds of retail whenever they are hit by an enemy guard. So they'll be fighting an NPC before they can flip a point, and they'll actually get retaliation put on them. This is particularly a huge thing. For example, the tower guarded by a giant flamethrower guy in Edge of the Mist. He will put retail on the entire Zerg, and the second you start your ice bow, you're just going to die, because everyone's going to proc retail on you, and you will die. You are that squishy. Both Ellies will die, the thief will die, and you'll just have a Nomad's Guardian, and among a million people waiting to die for himself. The only thing that saves the Guardian is the incredible DPS killing everyone before they can kill him. So it's like this really cool seesaw you're trying to strive, and the retail just throws that completely out of whack. So you do want to pick your times carefully. This is another reason why you want to wait until the very last moment before the Guardian moves in and you engage on your attack. Not just because psychologically everyone's going to zerg together closer and try and get on the point, but because this actually gives time for the retaliation that is still on players from the boss previously to wear away. And this, again, is another reason why sentries are so good to do this at. Sentries are incredible for many reasons if you want to blow up a Zerg. They are incredibly small nodes. You know, keeps are cool, and it feels good to defend a keep, I suppose, in some sense. But ultimately, if you're doing it at a keep, it's a giant square. People are going to be a little bit more spread out anyway. Towers, too, are pretty spread out, and a lot of the other objectives are a little bit bigger as the nodes. But sentries, these are small areas. This is why you see a lot of organized world versus world groups in real world versus world. They'll ignore them completely. People don't in Edge of the Mist though, because obviously it's experience and it's in the name of the K-Train. Not only are they small nodes, but the NPC that has to be killed to flip them dies very fast. And so this means most players in the Zerg don't have a tag on the NPC. And because they don't have a tag on the NPC, they know they have to be in that circle. And they're even more incentivized to be in the capture zone. And even more incentivized to stay there when it won't flip. The guards themselves there don't do much damage. They die very fast. And so they won't hit many players. They won't put retail out onto barely anyone from the Zerg. And so in these situations, these rare situations, you might be okay getting away with Scholar Runes. But I would say, really, everyone wants Strength Runes, as you're going to do a lot better with it. It's harder to do sentries because they do flip quicker, because the enemy does quicker. You've got to be faster on your feet. But if you track the Zerg's position well enough, you watch it, you can pull off some pretty incredible stuff. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about that with you guys today. I appreciate, yeah, some of you, all you want to do is K-Train, and it annoys you when people, you know, like Necromancers drop the fear walls. I think this stuff's incredible, though, and I actually think it's some really nuanced gameplay, and it highlights some stuff in Guild Wars 2's combat and the game that we really don't see elsewhere. I think it's cool. I love the synergy between these 4 players and how much force you can throw out as just 4 players. Hope you guys enjoyed the footage too, and a bit of a discussion about how it's been going, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone.